There is a passage in the Bible, just 2 verses long, that the early church spent centuries trying to bury. It tells us that the sons of God came down to earth, that they took human women as wives, and that what they fathered was not human. Genesis chapter 6, but the Bible does not tell you their names, or what they taught us, or why God flooded the world to stop them. The Book of Enoch does. What I am about to show you is the most dangerous chapter in any book that ever called itself Scripture. The 6th chapter of 1st Enoch. 20 fallen sons of God listed by name, with the specific knowledge each one of them taught humanity before the flood. Knowledge that was forbidden, knowledge that could not be unlearned, knowledge that, according to Enoch himself, provoked God to wipe the earth clean. For 2,000 years, this list was almost entirely lost to the Western Church, removed, excluded, quietly buried inside Ethiopian monasteries while the rest of the world forgot. Today we are going to walk through the 7 names that matter most, the 7 watchers whose specific teachings still shape your life, and you have never been told who they were. Stay with me until the end, because the 7th one is the one that explains the world we live in right now. Before we name them, we need to be precise about what they were. The Book of Enoch calls them iron in the original Aramaic. The Greek translation calls them egregoroi. Both words mean the same thing, the watchers. These were not the rebellious angels of Lucifer's first fall. That had already happened. The watchers were a separate order, sons of God charged specifically with observing humanity, with watching us, with reporting back to the throne, with remaining silent witnesses to the unfolding of human history. They had one rule: they were not to interfere. And in 1st Enoch chapter 6, 200 of them broke that rule together. Verse 6 tells us they descended on the summit of Mount Hermon, a real mountain still standing today on the modern border of Lebanon and Syria. They swore an oath to one another there. They bound themselves by covenant, and they came down. Not to destroy, not openly, not yet. They came down to teach. And here is what most people miss when they read this passage for the first time. The Watchers' rebellion was not military. It was not violent. It was something far more subtle and far more permanent. They gave humanity knowledge, specific knowledge, practical knowledge, knowledge that, once given, could never be taken back. The Bible has a word for this kind of corruption. It is the same word used in Genesis 3, when the serpent offered Eve a knowledge that was not hers to take. The Hebrew word is da'at, the kind of knowing that changes the knower forever. The Watchers gave humanity da'at, forbidden da'at, and the consequences of that gift are still unfolding 3,000 years later. Now, let me show you who they were. Not all 20. The text names 20 chief watchers, but 7 of them stand out from the rest, 7 whose teachings are described in detail, 7 whose contributions to human civilization are still measurable today. We start at the top. The first name in the list is Semjaza. In some manuscripts he is called Semjaza, in others Semjaza. The name in Hebrew means literally the name has seen, and there is something disturbing in that meaning, because Semjaza is the watcher who took the oath, who organized the descent, who went first. In 1st Enoch 6 verse 3, Semjaza speaks to the other 200 and says, "I fear that you will not consent to do this deed, and that I alone shall pay the penalty of a great sin." Read that again. He knew, before the descent, before the oath, before the corruption began. He already knew this was a sin so great that one of them would have to bear it alone if the others backed out. And so he made them swear. 200 sons of God on the summit of Hermon, binding themselves to one another so that none of them could turn back. The Hebrew word for the oath is herem, the same word used for things devoted to destruction. They were not just promising, they were sealing themselves to a fate. Semjaza's specific teaching was enchantments and root cuttings. The Greek word is epaoidas, the casting of spells through spoken word, the systematic use of plant material to compel spiritual outcomes, what we would today call ceremonial magic, what ancient Israel was forbidden in Deuteronomy 18 verse 10 from ever practicing. It is no accident that the practice God forbade Israel was the exact practice the chief watcher delivered to humanity. The prohibition was specifically against what Semjaza had taught. Of all the names in 1 Enoch chapter 8, one is treated differently from the rest. Azazel. Verse 1 of chapter 8. And Azazel taught men to make swords, and knives, and shields, and breastplates. And he made known to them the metals of the earth, and the art of working them, and bracelets, and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. Stop and look at what is in that list. Weapons of war, metallurgy, the systematic refinement of ore into killing instruments, but also cosmetics, eye paint, makeup, the art of altering the human face. This pairing seems strange to modern ears. Why would the same fallen entity teach both the technology of murder and the technology of vanity? Why would these two arts be linked in the Watcher's rebellion? Because they are the same teaching. Both are technologies of deception. The sword conceals one human's intent to kill another until the moment it is too late. Cosmetic alteration conceals one human's true face until the moment of intimate exposure. Both transform appearance into a weapon. Both turn the body, designed by God for honest presence, into something that lies. This is why, when Israel later marched into the Promised Land, the prophets of God called the painted-eyed queens of Canaan and the iron-armed kings of Assyria by the same word. Both were the seed of Azazel. Both were practicing his original lie. There is more. In the law of Moses, given roughly 900 years after Enoch wrote, the Day of Atonement required 2 goats, one slaughtered for the Lord, the other driven into the wilderness, alive, bearing the sins of Israel. Where was that second goat sent? Leviticus 16 verse 8 names the destination directly: to Azazel. The translators of the King James Bible were so disturbed by this that they translated the Hebrew word as scapegoat to remove the personal name from the page. But the original is unmistakable. Once a year, every year, the high priest of Israel symbolically loaded the sins of the nation onto a living animal and sent it back to the very watcher who had taught humanity to sin in the first place. Azazel was not a metaphor to ancient Israel. He was a person, a name, a specific spiritual presence bound, according to 1 Enoch 10 verse 4, by the angel Raphael hand and foot in the desert called Dudael, where he remains until the day of judgment. Most of what the modern occult calls forbidden knowledge traces back, through line after line of secret tradition, to this one name. If this is your first time hearing any of this, and most believers go their whole lives without being told, pause for 1 second and click subscribe. There are 4 more watchers I have to show you, and the 7th one explains something about the world right now that I promise you have felt, but never had words for. Subscribe. Stay with me. We continue. The next 2 are taught together because their teachings are the 2 halves of the same forbidden art. Baraqel, sometimes Baraqel, sometimes Baraqijal. The name means lightning of God. And his specific teaching, according to 1 Enoch 8 verse 3, was the observers of lightning. He taught humanity how to read the strikes of lightning across the sky as omens, as messages, as guidance for human decisions. This is the origin of what later cultures called augury. The Romans had a priestly class, the augurs, whose entire job was to interpret natural phenomena, especially lightning, as signs from the gods. They held legal authority over Roman policy. War, marriage, the founding of cities, all required augural approval before they could proceed. And the ancient world believed this practice was older than Rome, older than Greece, older than Babylon. It was. Baraqel had been teaching humanity to read the sky for at least 1,000 years before Rome was a village. Kokabel, star of God, taught its companion art. 1 Enoch 8 verse 3, Kokabel taught the constellations. This is the origin of astrology, not the popular 12-sign zodiac of modern magazines. Astrology in its full ancient form, the systematic claim that the position of stars and planets at the moment of a human birth determines that human's character, fate, and choices. The systematic transfer of moral responsibility from the human soul to a celestial mechanism. The Bible's response to this teaching is direct and uncompromising. Isaiah 47 verse 13. Let your astrologers come forward, those stargazers who make predictions month by month. Let them save you from what is coming upon you. The prophet is mocking them. Their craft cannot save anyone. The God who made the stars is not subject to their interpretation. Deuteronomy 18 verse 10. Let no one be found among you who practices divination or sorcery or interprets omens or engages in witchcraft. Every category in that verse is a watcher teaching, every single one. The Hebrew word for interpreter of omens in that verse is meonen. The root verb means to observe clouds, to read the sky for signs. That is Baraqel's specific teaching, named in the Mosaic Law 900 years later and forbidden under penalty of death. Why would the God of Israel treat star reading and lightning reading as capital crimes? Was he simply against curiosity, against trying to understand the universe? Number. He was against transferring trust. The fundamental claim of every astrological system, every augural reading, every cast horoscope is the same. Some power other than the living God is in charge of your future, and that power can be consulted apart from prayer. That is the lie the watchers planted. Not that the heavens move, they do, but that the heavens decide. They do not. The God who set the heavens in motion is the only one who decides. Kokabel and Baraqel taught humanity to look up, and to look up to the wrong thing. The next three watchers come faster, and their teachings are stranger. Ezeqel, sometimes Ezeqel, taught the knowledge of the clouds, not meteorology, not science. The text in 1 Enoch 8 verse 3 specifies the foreknowledge of the clouds, the use of cloud formations to predict events that have not yet happened. This is what the ancient world called nephomancy, divination by cloud watching. It survived for thousands of years in agrarian cultures across the world. It still survives today in degraded form, in folk weather predictions that promise to reveal much more than weather. Look at the western sky tonight, the saying goes, and you will see your future. You will see clouds. Whatever else you see, you place there yourself. Then comes Armaros. Armaros's teaching is the strangest of the seven and the most psychologically devastating. 1 Enoch 8 verse 3, Armaros taught the resolving of enchantments. Read that carefully. He taught humans how to break spells, how to undo what a spell had done, how to reverse what enchantment had bound. And here is why that matters. The economy of watcher knowledge created two forbidden trades, the casting of spells, taught by Semjaza, and the breaking of spells, taught by Armaros. Together, they form a closed system, a spiritual marketplace. People who fall under the first kind of bondage have to pay for the second kind of release, cause and cure delivered by the same spiritual lineage. The patient and the doctor descended from the same fallen father. This is the architecture of every dark spirituality from that day to this, the hex and the anti-hex, the curse and the curse breaker, the poison and the antidote, both sold by the same hand. The freedom of the gospel, by contrast, has no marketplace. There is no transaction. There is no fee. If the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. John 8 verse 36, one sentence, one person, one finished work. The cross of Jesus broke not just sin, but the entire economy that the watchers had built around it. The seventh, Sariel. Sariel's name in Aramaic means Prince of God, and his teaching, named in 1 Enoch 8 verse 3, was the course of the moon. Lunar cycles, tidal calculations, the systematic mapping of the moon's 28-day journey across the night sky. To modern ears, this sounds harmless. Every farmer needs to know when to plant. Every fisherman needs to know the tide. But Sariel did not teach this for agriculture. He taught it for ritual. The lunar calendar of the ancient world was the calendar of the mystery religions, the witches' year, the festivals of Astarte and Diana and Isis and Hecate. Every one of those traditions calibrated its rites to the phases of the moon, the new moon for beginnings, the full moon for power, the dark moon for cursing. Sariel did not give humanity the moon. The God of Genesis 1 verse 14 had already done that when he set the lights in the firmament for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. What Sariel did was rewire the meaning. He took what God had given as a gift of orientation and turned it into a system of ritual obligation. A clock God made into a leash humans now wear. So what do you do with all this? It is one thing to read about watchers in a book. It is another thing to recognize their fingerprints on the culture around you, and the fingerprints are everywhere. The architecture Azazel built, weapons paired with cosmetic deception, runs the entire modern entertainment industry. Look at any Hollywood action film. Bullets and beauty filters in the same frame. The technologies of killing and the technologies of altering appearance woven into one continuous spectacle. We do not even notice anymore. We have been swimming in it our whole lives. The astrology Kokabel taught is the most widely consulted spiritual framework in the Western world. More people read their horoscope tomorrow morning than will read the Sermon on the Mount this year. We laugh and call it harmless. The watcher who taught it knew better. The economy Armaros built, the spell and the spellbreaker, the curse and the curse removal, runs through the entire wellness and spirituality industry. Crystals to absorb negative energy, sage to clear it back out, Reiki sessions to undo what stress did, ayahuasca retreats to undo what trauma did. Each of these promises a release from a bondage that the same lineage created. The closed loop is intact. The watcher who taught it would recognize it instantly. And Sariel's lunar calendar runs through every form of neo-paganism that has resurged in the last 20 years. Wicca, witch talk, goddess spirituality, every one of them is timed to the cycles he taught. You did not need to learn any of this to participate in it. The watchers are quiet teachers. They do not announce themselves. They build the floor of a culture and let humans imagine they are the ones walking on it. But here's the good news. Jesus came down too. That is the comparison the Book of Enoch was preserved to make. 200 watchers came down to teach humanity what God had forbidden. One son came down to fulfill what God had promised. The watchers came secretly by oath in the dark of Mount Hermon. Jesus came openly by declaration into the bright sky of Bethlehem. The watchers gave humanity knowledge that bound it. Jesus gave humanity truth that frees it. Every chain the watchers put on the human race, the cross of Christ has authority to break. Not by counterspell, not by ritual, by name. In the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow. Philippians 2, verse 10. Including, the verse continues, those under the earth, including the watcher in Dudael, including every entity bound in chains of darkness, awaiting the judgment of the great day. This is why the gospel terrifies the spiritual systems the watchers built, not because it is one more system competing with theirs, because it is the unraveling of theirs. The watchers needed humanity to remain dependent. Jesus tells humanity, you are sons. The watchers needed humanity to remain afraid. Jesus says, peace, I leave with you, not as the world gives. The watchers needed humanity to remain in debt. Jesus says it is finished. 3 words, the whole closed loop, broken open. If you are watching this and you have spent years tangled in something the watchers taught, astrology, divination, ritual cycles, the spell and cure economy of modern wellness, I want you to know that the cross of Jesus is bigger than any of it. It is older, it is stronger, it is final. The watchers were sealed in chains by Raphael in the days of Enoch. They are still chained. They have been losing for 10,000 years. They are losing right now, on every continent, every time a single human soul turns from their teachings and turns to the one who made the lights they tried to claim. Subscribe to the Hidden Bible US, because next Saturday we are going to one of those teachings, the one Sariel started, and we are going to follow it through 3,000 years of human history to where it lives today. It is closer than you think. I will see you there.